Welcome back, everyone, to our classroom called the College of Glycation. Once again, I'm Paul Reynolds. I'm a biomedical scientist and professor of cell biology. And today we are tackling a topic that's critical, but unfortunately often overlooked. This episode is called Glycation and Kidney Health, from Damage to Dialysis. If you caught our earlier episodes on glycation, you already know that glycation is a sneaky chemical process that's happening in your body right now. Your liver is dynamic and it ensures that you have appropriate glucose levels, so there's no way around glycation. Our goal should be minimizing it. Today, we are building on that concept and zooming in on how glycation and advanced glycation end products or AGEs wreak havoc on your kidneys in particular, and in so doing, compromise their filtering capacity, sparking inflammation and paving the way for chronic kidney disease. We'll also unpack insulin resistance. That is a process that can fuel the mess. If you resist the signal that insulin can be, you will have glycation running rampant. And we'll also, by the time we end today, share some practical strategies to help protect your kidneys. As always, we will ground this discussion in peer-reviewed science. So let's get started. Let's start with a quick refresher on glycation, because again, it foundationally supports what we'll talk about today. Glycation is, as we've mentioned before, a non-enzymatic reaction. Think of sugar molecules like glucose and fructose that bind proteins, lipids, or nucleic acids. Those small sugars are kind of like disobedient children running across the playground, putting their sticky fingerprints on everything. No enzyme is necessary, no control, just sugar gluing itself to the body's machinery. The result is the accumulation of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, and these are stable, damaging compounds that accumulate and pile up over time. Today, we know that AGEs are central to kidney dysfunction, and that's what we will explore today, how AGEs, or glycation products, undermine your kidneys and what you can do about it. Now, your kidneys are metabolic marvels. They filter about 180 liters of blood every day to remove waste, balance your fluids, and regulate electrolytes. In fact, 1/5 of all the blood in your body right now is actively being filtered in the kidneys. But glycation is a problem. It throws a wrench into this process. AGEs can accumulate in the delicate kidney tissues, particularly in diabetic patients, where high blood sugar accelerates age formation in the glomeruli. Those are sites of abundant filtration. In 2019, there was a study published in the journal Diabetes and Metabolism. The author was Fishman and colleagues. They showed that AGEs correlate very closely with diabetic nephropathy, which is a leading cause of kidney failure worldwide. AGEs damage the kidneys in three key ways. Number one, they impair filtering. Number two, they fuel inflammation. And number three, they drive fibrosis. And all of these push the kidney toward chronic disease. When you think of impaired filtering, imagine the delicate membranes in between the capillaries and the filtration apparatus in the kidney. They get thicker, more restrictive, and problematic. In the inflammation story, there is a particular cell type in the kidney called a mesangial cell. Those are cells that are sources for inflammatory cytokines. So when they get uncomfortable because of excess glycation, they feed this inflammatory story abundantly. First, let's talk about the filtering story. The kidney's filtering units are called nephrons, and these rely on a delicate structure called the glomerular basement membrane. Now, unfortunately, ages can cross-link onto proteins in that basement membrane like collagen, and in that membrane, the collagen that is glycated becomes stiff and leaky. That was shown in 2021 in an article published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences. The main author was Byung, and they found that ages disrupt the glomerular barrier, allowing proteins like albumin to leak into the urine. Now, albumin is just a bit larger than what would normally be filtered and retained. But because of the damage to this basement membrane in a diabetic state, that glomerular barrier is more leaky. So you start to see more albumin in the urine. And that's a hallmark of kidney damage, specifically called proteinuria. Now, this compromises the kidney's ability to filter blood effectively. And it's not just albumin, but the kidney will then let toxins build up and other products, in fact, because of its inability to filter well. Next, let's talk about inflammation. Ages bind onto the receptor of ages called RAGE, and in the process, they trigger a cascade within the cell, leading to inflammatory signals. This isn't a mild irritation. I promise it is a chronic destructive process. And the main cell type that will activate RAGE age signaling are again those pro-inflammatory mesangial cells. A study published in 2020 in the Journal of Clinical Medicine showed that RAGE activation in the kidneys increases cytokines or inflammatory molecules like TNF alpha, and that release damages the glomerular cells and promotes scarring, again, hurting the ability of the kidney to filter well. Inflammation also recruits immune cells that further stress the kidney tissue, and those immune cells leave the vasculature, set up shop in the kidney, and compromise its effects. The result, progressive loss of nephrons, waning ability of nephrons to filter, and those are the kidney's workhorses. Problematic. In diabetes, where ages are sky high, this inflammation accelerates, explaining why diabetic nephropathy is so common. If you have excessive advanced diabetes, your kidneys will struggle. This brings us to a condition known as chronic kidney disease, or CKD, and its sister, renal failure. Ages drive fibrosis, scar tissue formation that replaces healthy kidney tissue over time. In 2023, there was a study published in the Frontiers of Endocrinology journal. The main author was Wang and colleagues. They found that ages upregulate fibrotic pathways. Now, you may have heard of fibrosis before. It is usually caused by factors like TGF beta. Transforming growth factor beta is one of the main orchestrators of fibrosis throughout the body. And Wang et al. Found that ages upregulate that pathway, TGF beta, leading to glomerulosclerosis, a long word, but that's basically describes hardening of the glomerulus or fibrosis of the glomerulus. Those authors also found abundant tubulointerstitial fibrosis. That's outside of the glomerulus, rather in the tubules, like the proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubules. So you're learning now that glycation is no respecter of portions within the kidney. It impacts it all. Over time, this fibrosis slashes kidney function, pushing patients toward end-stage renal disease, where dialysis or transplantation is the only option. Now, in 2015, a study published in Diabetes Care showed that ages like methylglyoxal and a few others can predict early progression of diabetic nephropathy, highlighting the role of ages in CKD, or chronic kidney disease. Now, the stakes are high. Chronic kidney disease affects over 800 million people worldwide. and diabetes is far and away the leading cause of these diseases. Now, ages don't just damage the kidneys, they also amplify systemic issues like hypertension and cardiovascular disease. Both of these conditions can further stress the kidneys, right? It stands to reason that if you have higher blood pressure and plaques floating around or embedded in vasculature, the feeding of blood toward the kidneys will be impacted. It's a brutal cycle, and glycation is the heart of that cycle. So let's take a look at closely this idea of insulin resistance because it is a major driver of glycation in the kidneys. Insulin resistance is when your cells, especially your muscle, liver, and fat, stop responding to insulin. That is the hormone the pancreas releases that should clear glucose from the blood. Not entirely, but at least it minimizes the glucose burden. As a result, blood sugar will stay high in an individual that has insulin resistance, and your pancreas will churn out more and more insulin until it just simply can't keep up. Now, I've studied this condition for years, and it is a metabolic train wreck. When folks are insulin resistant, blood sugar will steadily rise, providing a feeding ground for excess glycation. High blood sugar means more glucose available to glycate proteins and lipids all throughout the body. So this age accumulation is really a hammer for the kidneys. So why is this a problem? Well, beyond elevating glucose, insulin resistance also creates a cascade really of many issues. In 2017, there was a very important review published, and I've mentioned this a few times. It appears in the Journal of Traditional and Complementary Medicine, where the authors noted after reviewing many papers that ages impair insulin signaling by modifying receptors, worsening their resistance. Ages also generate oxidative stress, and this oxidative stress, full of free radicals, damages kidney cells' mitochondria and impairs their function. Last year in 2024, a study published in the BMC Journal of Endocrine Disorders found that skin ages, we've talked about this as well, measured by autofluorescence, directly correlate with your hemoglobin A1C levels, as well as insulin resistance in diabetic patients. These data reflect that systemic glycation is rampant. Now, in the kidneys, this translates into more glomerular damage, more inflammation, and a faster rate of progression toward chronic kidney disease. Uncontrolled blood sugar is like pouring fuel on a fire. A few years ago, in 2019, in the journal Diabetes and Metabolism, they showed that poor glycemic control, evidenced by HbA1c levels that are above 7%, doubles age formation, directly correlating with proteinuria, that's protein in the urine, and the decline of kidney function. So I hope you're seeing that insulin resistance harms the kidneys, but it's so much more than that. It doesn't only harm the kidneys. It stresses related tissues throughout the body. Think of blood vessels, nerves, and other tissues amplifying systemic damage. So how do we protect our kidneys from this glycation onslaught is a question you might be thinking of. The science points to practical, actionable steps. First, we need to do a better job of controlling blood sugar, and in the process, we will minimize endogenous glycation that happens in our bodies. Reducing refined carbohydrates and sugars, thinking about here in this case, white bread, sodas, sweets, etc., will lower glucose spikes and the endogenous formation of these ages. In the Journal of Diabetes Research, a publication appeared in 2022 showing that low glycemic diets reduce ages and improve metabolic markers. And all of these will for sure benefit kidney health. Exercise is also key. We need to move more often because when you move or exercise, it will boost your cellular sensitivity to insulin, lowering blood sugar and therefore age formation. Next, we can cut dietary ages. That is the process of exogenous glycation. And we talked about this last week. Ages are abundant in high age foods like over fried meats, over grilled burgers, or processed, highly sugared snacks. All of those will directly increase circulating ages and feed onto the liver, which is in charge of clearing those. The more circulating ages you have from your diet, the harder the liver will work to clear them. In 2010, there was a study in the Journal of the American Dietetic Association. The author was led by Iribari and colleagues. They found that steaming, poaching, or slow cooking drastically slashes ages compared to over grilling or frying. For example, as I've mentioned last week, if you poach chicken, you have 10% of the ages compared to chicken that is grilled. If you marinate your meats in acidic environments, imagine vinegar or lemon before cooking, that can also help this exogenous glycation source. Third, let's work together to boost our antioxidants. There are many sources of these in your proximity. You should imagine polyphenols. These are in berries, green tea, dark chocolate, etc., as well as different vitamins and nutrients like vitamin C and omega-3 fatty acids. These work together to inhibit age formation or neutralizing the effects of RAGE signaling. In 2023, an article published in the Frontiers of Endocrinology noted that polyphenol-rich diets reduce kidney inflammation in animal models. Admittedly, human studies are ongoing. We need more data here. Whole foods are your best source. Skip supplements until we have more data. But whole foods are great. Foods that come in boxes or wrappers, not so good. Finally, let's do better at managing blood pressure. Ages will stiffen blood vessels, raising pressure that will in turn stress out your kidneys. And that is really key in research after research that shows that better vascular health made possible by low age diets will support your kidney function. Work with your doctor to monitor your blood pressure. Consider ketogenic states often. And if you consider those types of diets plus lifestyle changes, you can reduce salt, stress, and blood pressure. So let's take a step back and explore the history of glycation in kidney disease. And we've kind of alluded that already. While research into glycation spans over a century, it wasn't really until the 1980s that ages were directly tied to diabetic kidney problems or nephropathy. Many have now shown in peer-reviewed literature after peer-reviewed literature that ages accelerate kidney damage in diabetes. And that was sparked by research into HbA1c as a key marker. Now, recent trends are exciting. Non-invasive tools like skin autofluorescence now can measure ages reliably. And that was shown in 2024 in the British Medical Journal Endocrine Disorders. Skin autofluorescence predicts kidney function decline in diabetes, something that seems quite removed from one another, but this cheap, reproducible tool may directly correlate to how healthy your kidneys are. We should also research anti-age therapies. In 2023, in the journal Frontiers of Endocrinology, there was a study that tested compounds like pyridoxamine, that blocks age formation. They basically counteract the reactive carbonyls that will make ages. So this peroxidine showed promise in animal models. We need human studies as a follow-up. Dietary interventions are also gaining traction. In 2022, in the Journal of Diabetes Research, authors of that article found that low-age diets reduced serum ages, that's the ages that circulate in the body, and less kidney stress in chronic kidney disease patients. So this is an article in which the researchers looked directly at CKD patients and found that if you switch to a low-age diet, you can mitigate this inflammatory environment. But the bigger picture is still concerning. As diabetes and insulin resistance surge, again, there are over 400 million diabetic cases globally. Glycation's impact on the kidney is growing. Modern diets packed with high-age processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and abundant sugars are fueling this epidemic. It's a wake-up call, and kidney health starts with your metabolic health. So here's the takeaway for today. Glycation and ages are silently undermining your kidneys, impairing their filtering capacity, driving inflammation, and pushing kidneys toward chronic kidney disease. Insulin resistance and high blood sugar will definitely accelerate this damage, creating a vicious cycle in which your kidneys are in the crosshairs. But I promise you, you can fight back. Control your blood sugar with a low glycemic food, exercise, cut dietary ages by steaming or poaching, boost your antioxidants, and manage blood pressure. Your kidneys are very resilient, but they need your help. Your health is in your hands, therefore. Every choice matters. So thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time. And as always, remember, stay sharp and stay healthy.